But is there a time when it is right to be offended? I think so, yes. We should be offended when children are denied a proper education. We should be offended when children are told they will spend eternity in hell. We should be offended when medical science is compromised. We should be offended when voodoo is given equal weight to science. We should be offended by hymen reconstruction surgery. We should be offended by female circumcision, genital mutilation of females. This picture happened to be taken in Africa, but it happens in Britain. I had a conversation with a schools inspector, experienced schools inspector from London, who told me that it's very common. Girls are typically sent away euphemistically to stay with an uncle in Bradford. We should be offended by stoning. Martin Amis, equally distinguished novelist, son of Kingsley Amis, whom I mentioned before, put a point that I want to put rather well. He said, secularism contains no warrant for action. He's contrasting this with religion, which, although far from true that religion always leads to evil deeds, very, very far from true, nevertheless, there is a recipe for evil which can follow from deep religious faith. If you really, really, really believe that your God is the only true God, if you really, really believe that your God wants you to blow yourself up, killing lots of other people, or fly planes into skyscrapers, then when you do that, you are doing the righteous thing. You're being a good person. You're following your faith. Martin Amis points out that secularism contains no such recipe for action. And he goes on, one can afford to be crude about this. When Islamists crash passenger planes into buildings or hack off the heads of hostages, they shout, "God is great." When secularists do that kind of thing, what do they shout? Well, obviously, that's a rhetorical question. It invites the answer, they don't do it. Why should they? What would there be to shout if you were a secularist? Blowing somebody up or cutting off their head. However, his rhetorical question was answered by a critic in the following outrageous way. The question, Martin Amis's question, is meant to be rhetorical, but there's a simple answer. They shout, "Heil Hitler." What a truly outrageous thing to say. Yes, I often meet it. Whether or not Hitler was a Roman Catholic, as he frequently claimed to be, the evidence is contradictory, frequently contradicted himself. Nobody could deny that Hitler's soldiers were as Christian as everybody else was in Europe at the time. That means most of them were Christian, mostly either Roman Catholic or Lutheran. But so what? Even if Hitler was an atheist, so what? Hitler was also a vegetarian. Does that suggest that vegetarians have a special tendency to be murderous, bigoted racists? Of course not. Now, it's sometimes said that humans need religion, even if it isn't true. They need the comfort of religion. I think there's something a bit patronizing about that, too. You and I, of course, are much too intelligent to need religion. Poor people out there. They need the comfort of it. They need the consolation. Let that pass. I mean, certainly humanity's need for comfort is real. But I think there's something, anyway, childish in the belief that the universe owes us comfort as of right. Just because something is comforting, it doesn't mean that the universe is going to lay it on as a truth. Isaac Asimov's remark about the infantilism of pseudoscience is just as applicable to religion. He said, inspect every piece of pseudoscience, and you will find a security blanket, a thumb to suck, a skirt to hold. And it is astonishing how many people are unable to understand that to say X is comforting does not imply X is true. A related point concerns the need for a purpose in life. To quote one Canadian critic, the atheist may be right about God, who knows, but God or no God, it's clear that something in the human soul requires a belief that life has a purpose that descends the material plane. One would think that a more rational than now empiricist such as Dawkins would recognize this unchanging aspect of human nature. Does Dawkins really think this world would be a more humane place if we all looked to the God delusion instead of the Bible for truth and comfort? Well, actually, yes. Since you mention humane, yes, I do. But I must repeat yet again that the consolation value of a belief does not have anything to do with truth. It does not in any way raise its truth value. I can't deny the need for emotional comfort. I can't claim that the worldview offered in my book gives any more than moderate comfort. If you're afraid of death, you might superficially think that a priest who tells you you're not really going to die would be more comforting than a scientist who tells you it's highly implausible that our individuality could survive the decay of our brains. But I've heard experienced nurses in old people's homes say the ones who are most terrified of death tend to be the Catholics. All that guilt fed them from the cradle up, the terror of purgatory and hell. And as for eternal nothingness, which is what I believe in, of course, is it really all that frightening? As Mark Twain said, I do not fear death. I'd been dead for billions and billions of years before I was born, and had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. In any case, I don't believe I ever met anyone at a funeral who dissents from the view that the non-religious parts, eulogies, the deceased's favourite poems or music, are more moving than the prayers. I want to end by reading the opening lines from a previous book of mine, Unweaving the Rainbow, lines that I have long earmarked for my own funeral. We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will in fact never see the light of day, outnumber the sand grains of Sahara. Certainly, those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. We know this because the set of possible people allowed by our DNA so massively outnumbers the set of actual people. In the teeth of these stupefying odds, it is you and I, in our ordinariness, that are here. We privileged few who won the lottery of birth against all odds, how dare we whine at our inevitable return to that prior state from which the vast majority have never stirred? Thank you very much.